Welcome to Sports Guy Talking. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Kenny Atkinson backing out of the Hornets coaching job. The Hornets hired Kenny Atkinson on Friday, June 10th to be their new head coach, or so they thought. However, Kenny Atkinson backed out of the coaching job on Saturday, June 18th, as he withdrew himself from being hired by the Hornets, which means now the Hornets have to go ahead and change plans at what they're going to do at the head coaching position. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So, here it is. Where do the Hornets go from here at the head coach position? Well, I'm going to say this for the Hornets. The Hornets have three simple options what they can do now that Kenny Atkinson backed out of this coaching hire. The Hornets could either A, hire Mike DAntoni, B, hire Terry Stotts, or C, hire Quinn Snyder. Either way, though, the Hornets have got to go ahead and hire an experienced coach because this is a situation already that I did not think a first-time head coach could come in and succeed James Borrego. Now, look, James Borrego, former Hornets coach, I know a lot of people have feelings about him. By the way, this is a Hornets shirt that I got, but I know some people are high on James Borrego, other people not so high on him. I was personally not one of the guys that was high on James Borrego. In 4 seasons, James Borrego led the Hornets to 0 playoff appearances. They never finished better than the 9th seed. In the 2 play-in games that they did play in, they got killed by a combined margin of 56 points. That's not good enough. He certainly deserved to get fired. I know people are going to say, oh, James Borrego increased his team's wins from 23 in his second year to 33, the following year to 43 the next year. So that meant he had made 10 win improvements in 2 seasons in a row. And they would say, you know what, that's a guy worth sticking around. But from what I saw in the playing games, he certainly wasn't worth it, and he was losing the locker room. That's why the Hornets had to go ahead and fire James Borrego. He wasn't the right man for the job. Now, look, is James Borrego a bad coach? No, he should be a head coach again at some point in his career. Not right now, though. He needs to be an assistant somewhere. Anyways, though, when you look at this Charlotte Hornets team, they do have talent on their team. They have LaMelo Ball. He's a rising player for them. I like LaMelo Ball's game. He reminds me a lot of Jason Kidd and Russell Westbrook in him. So that's the good parts of Westbrook, that is. So I like LaMelo Ball's future. Then, of course, there's Terry Rozier. He's a decent player, but he is kind of getting a little bit overpaid. Then, of course, there's Gordon Hayward. He's getting paid $30 million a year. He's good, but he's never on the floor, basically, because he's always hurt. Then there's P.J. Washington, decent player. Then Miles Bridges. Speaking of Miles Bridges, he had a good year for the Hornets, but now he's going to be a free agent. Teams are expecting to basically get a max offer for Miles Bridges. Basically, people are expecting Miles Bridges to get a max offer contract. The Hornets, I'm not sure they have the money to do so. Yes, they could go over the cap, but is Miles Bridges certainly worth going over the max? I'm not quite so sure. I think he's a good player, and I think that he's going to be a rising player, and I think that he can certainly play in this league, but I'm not sure if he's worth the max in terms of that regard. The Hornets might need to do a sign and trade with Miles Bridges as far as I'm concerned, but anyways, though, you just look at this Hornets team. They just have a decent amount of talent. They just need to fix some things around the margins, and they need to improve on the defensive end of the floor. Or they could try to make their offense so powerful that the best defense is more offense. I'm personally in that category where I believe that the best version of our defense is to go throw in more offense. Look, this Hornets offense is already really talented. I just gave you a plethora of players that can score on the offensive end of the floor. Now, they're not necessarily great at stopping them on defense. They don't have a rim protector. Not yet anyways. But from the perspective that I'm looking at, I feel pretty good about where the Hornets are on the offensive end of the floor. Defensively, they're not quite where I need to be in terms of how I feel satisfactory with them. But anyways, though, I think that the Hornets should actually go for an offensive-minded coach, because if the Hornets go for an offensive-minded coach, their offense could be really elite. And then the defense, it just needs to be better than 20th, right? It just needs to be a top 20, top half kind of defense in the NBA, because if that's the case, the Hornets can win 50 games. So you look at these candidates, I don't think that you can go wrong if you hire an experienced candidate that's not named Frank Vogel. I don't think the Hornets should go ahead and hire Frank Vogel. If the Hornets hire Frank Vogel, their offense is going to seriously regress. Their defense, they might improve a little bit, but they're not going to improve too much on the offensive end of the floor. I think they're actually going to get worse if they hire Frank Vogel, as far as I'm concerned, on the offensive end of the floor. So I think that the Hornets, they need to hire an experienced coach. Cannot go with a first-time head coach at this position, because it would put him in an awkward situation, especially considering the fact that he wasn't even the first candidate to be considered on there. So, like I said, there's 3 options in this. Mike DAntoni, Terry Stotts, Quinn Snyder. I'm going to start off with the obvious candidate, Mike D'Antoni. Now, Mike D'Antoni, look, he's an innovative, offensive-minded guy. However, he's really old. He's at age 71. Who knows how many years he has left in the NBA as a coach. Right now, he's a coaching advisor or a coaching consultant for the New Orleans Pelicans. That's what he's been doing the last 2 years in terms of coaching. He's just been a consultant and advisor for the Pelicans this past season and the Nets back in the 2020 through 2021 season. So that's what I got to say about D'Antoni. Now, look, if Mike D'Antoni was on the Hornets, I wouldn't necessarily mind it. I actually think that would be a good hire for the Hornets. However, what we do know about Mike D'Antoni is that his teams never reach the finals and that his teams never play good defense unless you give him an elite center. Even if you give him an elite center, his defenses are not going to be that elite, okay? And the Hornets, they don't have a good center at all. Their current center right now is Mason Plumlee. I mean, come on. That's a joke. He might actually be worse than the previous Hornets center, Cody Zeller, which is saying something. Anyways, though, you're looking at what the Hornets have in terms of the roster construction. Like I said, you just need more offense. And you would think that Mike D'Antoni would be a great fit on paper. However, I don't like it because Mike D'Antoni hasn't really shown you that he can get you to a finals, even with a stacked team. And yeah, LaMelo Ball's going to put up tons of numbers. He's going to be able to thrive in his offense because it's a point guard friendly offense. LaMelo Ball is exactly that. He's going to thrive in that. However, I don't think it'll lead us to championship caliber basketball. And I know I sound picky because considering that it's coming from a Hornets fan. Remember, the Hornets, they have never reached the conference finals at all in their franchise history. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I would feel okay with the D'Antoni hire. Not too great about it, though, because there's a ceiling. And plus, who knows how long Mike D'Antoni is going to be coaching. It seems like we're hoping for D'Antoni to coach 4 years for the Hornets. That seems being generous with us, because if we hire Mike D'Antoni, yeah, we might have a great season or two, and then he's just going to either retire or resign or something like that, and then the roster's going to go in shambles, because that's what happens every time Mike D'Antoni gets hired by a team. They end up having an overachieving season or two. They then pay up their guys. Then D'Antoni has to leave because something always happens, and the roster is in shambles. So if we hire Mike D'Antoni, I say we because I'm a Hornets fan, then I would feel okay with it, but I would feel too great about it just because I don't think the future would be too bright with him in terms of that. The immediate future would be good, but the future 3 to 5 years from now, it wouldn't be that good. So that's kind of my take on Mike D'Antoni. As for Terry Stotts, I would love this hire. This was the guy that I wanted the Hornets to go ahead and get. I wanted the Hornets to hire Terry Stotts because this guy has a really good offense. This guy can develop point guards. He played a big role in Damian Lillard's emergence. You look at the Portland Trailblazers when he was coaching with them, 7 out of 8 years, they made the playoffs. With the last 7 years, all making the playoffs. What an incredible feat by Terry Stotts, considering the fact that he didn't really have a good center throughout his time in Portland and was still able to have acceptable level of defenses. I say he's a pretty good coach. I'm surprised that he has not been hired since he got fired by the Trailblazers. When the Trailblazers fired him, I thought a team was going to pick him up real quick. But he's been on the market for a year. Nobody seemed like they're going to hire him. I think the Hornets need to absolutely go ahead and hire him. Terry Stotts will be a great fit, and he's also shown you that he can have success in a small market, because Portland is a small market team, and despite that, he took that team to the conference finals with a limited roster. So this Hornets team, they're limited in terms of defense, but I think Terry Stotts can cover that up with a really good offense. He can make this offense top 5, top 3 as far as concerned. Defensively, yeah, it's going to be a little bit shaky, but like I said, if the Hornets can just get the top 20, that's an acceptable rate for what I'm looking for in a defensive-minded coach. So I would like that in terms of that. I just think the Hornets have to go ahead and get themselves a rim protector. But I think Terry Stotts has to be the hire for the Hornets to replace what we thought Kenny Atkinson was going to be the head coach. Now, Kenny Atkinson, look, I want to say this about him. The reason why he left was because of family. And also the fact that the Warriors won the title. The Warriors winning the championship, I mean, I expected that to happen, but most fans did not expect that to happen. And when the Warriors won the championship, and with Mike Brown leaving to go to the Kings, the lead assistant role for the Warriors became wide open, and maybe Kenny really wants that, knowing that year in and year out he can go for championships, and that Steve Kerr could be stepping down from coaching sooner rather than later, because Steve Kerr, he's 56 right now, but he's had a lot of health problems. Who knows how much longer he's going to be there. So Kenny's thinking, okay, if I take the lead assistant role, I might get the Golden State job in a few years, and they have a bright future. Kuminga, Moody, whatever. James Wiseman too. They got a bright future. Of course, they still have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green in terms of veteran leadership. So that's obviously a great situation to walk into if you're the lead assistant. So I think Kenny valued that over going to a Hornets team where they're good, but they're limited as far as concerned. So that's kind of where I'm looking at with the Kenny Atkinson thing. Now that I finished up that point, I want to go ahead and talk about Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder, if he goes to the Hornets, I wouldn't be against it. I do think he would be an upgrade to James Borrego. He would probably be an upgrade to Kenny Atkinson, though I couldn't say for sure. And other than that, though, I don't really have too much to say about that because although Quinn Snyder, he has a good offensive mind in him, his defenses, they're pretty good as well. I mean, he did have success in a small market in Utah, but they never got past the second round, so there is a ceiling when Quinn Snyder is your coach. And also, I highly doubt that Quinn Snyder would even want to go to Charlotte. He wanted a new contract from the Jazz. They didn't give it to him. He's not going to resign from the Jazz to just go to the Hornets. That's downgrading. The Hornets would have to pay up a lot of money to get Quinn Snyder. I doubt Michael Jordan would do that. So even though Quinn Snyder wouldn't be a bad hire, I'm certainly not expecting that to happen. So it looks like the hire is going to be either Mike D'Antoni or Terry Stotts. I think that the Hornets are actually going to go ahead and hire Mike D'Antoni. However, if I was the general manager, I would go ahead and hire Terry Stotts because Terry Stotts' ceiling is a little bit higher, but that his floor is lower, but still it's a gamble I'm willing to take. Now look, the Hornets, they haven't been to the second round in my lifetime. When I was born, that was already the last time the Hornets went to the second round. Okay, so it's been a really long time as far as I'm concerned. But either way, though, I don't think you can go wrong with either hire, although I would personally go ahead and hire Terry Stotts. I think he's the perfect fit for this Hornets team. So that is why the Hornets should just go ahead and hire Terry Stotts as their new head coach and call it a day, as he would be a good fit for this Hornets team. Now I got to go ahead and get to the shout-outs. So shout out number one goes to Toasty Foods. He says 90% agree. While Draymond playing well helps the team greatly, they can still win when he plays bad, which has been shown so far this series. That's exactly what happened. And guess what? Draymond Green stepped it up in games 5 and 6. They went ahead and won the series. So congratulations to Toasty Foods for being right about Draymond Green, and to myself for predicting that the Warriors would win the NBA Finals. So that's my shout out number one. Shout out number two is Brandon Zong. He has fire emoji. He's just basically reacting to the video that I made about Andrew Wiggins. Thank you for that. It means a lot in terms of the support that you've been showing week in and week out for each video. Thank you so much. That's my shout out number two. Shout out number three is Spencer Broad. He says future Rocket. He's talking about Paolo Banchero. All right, so that's a draft prospect I was talking about with Sean Davison. And he was predicting that he would be a future Rocket. I 1000% agree with him. That's exactly what I was thinking as well. So that's my shout out number three. Shout out number four is Sincere Coons. So he says Jason Tatum is going to explode tonight, averaging 35, 9, and 6. That was for Game 6. Obviously, it did not happen. Jason Tatum, he had a poor Game 6, did not show up whatsoever, came up short in a big game. That's why people were getting on Jason Tatum, rightfully so. And I'm sorry that you were wrong about it. And I also thought he was going to go off as well. So, Sincere, I can understand where you were thinking from, because I was thinking the same thing. So that's my shout out number four. And shout out number five is Ethan Beckstead. So he says Curry is the best player in the world, top 10 all time, but better than Magic? Nope. Well, thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing your opinion. And it's okay to disagree. I'm going to disagree, though, because I think Steph Curry, he's a top 7 player all time, and I do think he is better than Magic Johnson. You think about how Steph Curry transformed the game of basketball. Now, Magic, he did do that too, but he didn't do it to a level that Steph Curry could. Now you got all the kids that want to be like Steph Curry. I didn't get that vibe from a Magic Johnson, although I wasn't alive while Magic Johnson was there. So maybe you could give me pushback on that. But I still think that Steph Curry is better than Magic Johnson all time. I just think that Steph Curry, he's actually kind of underrated when you look at his history in terms of his all-time rankings. I think that he's certainly worthy of a top 7 spot. So that's where I'm at with Steph Curry. Again, thanks for commenting. It means a lot to me. So those are my 5 shout-outs that I have for you guys to present. All right, so thank you to each and everyone for commenting on these videos. Thank you to each and everyone for liking these videos as well. It certainly means a lot to me. Please keep sharing my content, as it helps the channel grow as well. And I'm sure that the 5 people that I shouted out would be very grateful that I shout out to them. And if you didn't get shouted out, that's okay. Keep commenting, because you'll eventually get shouted out. That's what happens when you go and keep commenting. You're going to keep having a higher chance to get shouted out. All right, so make sure you guys remember to do that. Now, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking if you have not done so yet. Just please go ahead and do it, man. Like the video and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in a future video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dustin Tran, and at Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter at Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.